This video is all about how to draw the muscles of the neck, but more importantly, this video is about the process that I use when I'm trying to study an area of anatomy that I'm struggling with. And step one is going to be drawing some pictures based on some anatomical diagrams. I went ahead and searched online, and among the best that I found, believe it or not, and I'm sure you can, is from Proco, actually. I have a course with Proco, which you can find on their website. I don't so much mean that as a plug, but there you go, it's a plug. Fact is, though, that it is a very, very good diagram. And so I'm going to start with that one, and we'll move on from there. So I'm just going to rough in my face. Obviously, I'm not concerned about it being incredibly anatomically accurate, but just enough that I can get my landmarks in. Here's my ear. And from here, I want to start working in my actual anatomical shapes. And so I can see, there's my ear. Let me just define that a little bit more clearly. And I've got my jawline here. Now, in the Proco diagram, there's a real arch down from the chin. I don't want that, and so I'm not going to include it. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to completely ignore that and pretend that it's not there because it's not useful for me. And so right even from this beginning stage, when I'm really looking at actual proper anatomical diagrams, I don't want to take on things that I know are just not really going to be what I'm looking for. And so I've got a large muscle here. It connects from the collarbone in the front, and we'll draw that angle in just a minute. This is going to be from the side. First of all, I can connect just a little bit lower here, and that's going to give me more of what I want than the large curve that's in the original. This muscle here, I don't know if it splits. I don't know of any muscle that really splits, but anyway, it forms two ends here. And so one connects in this way, and this one kind of sneaks in behind it, comes out here, just along the collarbone, which comes up here. So let me just draw that in. And then along the back, I've got another connection, connects at about the same height. And this is going to cover my trapezius. I hope that's right. Whatever, it's the shoulder. And so I've got that defined in there. Now, this area here is the part that really gives me trouble. I'm not too bad with this part, but I really want to include some strong examples of this muscular structure here too, because I know that's something that a lot of you struggle with. And then there are a few other muscles. I can see them hinted at just under here. Another one here. Another one kind of sneaks out here. Got another one crossing in here, and it gets all pretty confusing. I don't really know where these muscles are going. I ultimately don't care, except that I do need to know where they go under this muscle, because this is actually a large, very thin muscle that covers up underlying muscles. And that's what's caused me, I think, a lot of trouble. And so I've got a muscle, this one here extends through out to here, and you can see it coming out. And so I've misshaped it just a little bit. And this is why it's so helpful to know what muscles go underneath what. And then this muscle here, I'd probably curve that the wrong way, comes out here. And it gives me something like this. And to me, truthfully, that is a little bit confusing still. And so I'm going to go ahead and try another angle. And so I've got another diagram here, and I'll put this one up also. And I'm going to go ahead and draw the head. The head's tilted up just a little bit more on this one. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, except that I want to be fairly accurate to what I'm drawing here. So if it's tilted in the reference, I'm going to go ahead and tilt it just a little bit in my drawing. So my ear is just about here. Flat with the top of the head there. And so let me clean this up, get something a little more presentable. Draw an actual ear in here. My eye is just a little bit tall. As much as we're not drawing that, I want to make sure that this is at least somewhat accurate. All right. there's my basic facial structure. I'm really not worried about any of the anatomy in the face for this. And so the most important muscle that I have along the side, again, is going to attach just behind the ear. And in this example, it has a bit of a curve this way. And it comes to the front here and attaches to the collarbone. And then the other muscle really does seem to come directly from that muscle and integrate and attaches just underneath and has a curve coming out this way. And I've got my Adam's apple here. There are a few other muscles kind of defined in there. I'm ignoring that entirely because it's just not really going to be useful for what I'm trying to do. And now for the back, redefine the back of my head here a little bit. I've got this muscle again coming in here, attaching to the top of the collarbone. And in this example, the muscle is coming out like this. And then I can see underneath attaching a fairly large muscle here, crossed over with a couple of muscles here. So it looks like 2 muscles and then 1 extra muscle here. And so that's consistent. So I feel like I've learned something already. I have a consistent muscle here. I don't know if I placed it as well there, but that's how it's placed in this example. There's one, there's the other muscle there, this one here, and then I've got another muscle kind of sneaking out there. And my Adam's apple, I never draw in terms of muscles. It's just not something that you see. And so I'm going to ignore that here because it's, again, just taking away from what I'm trying to get from this. Now, I can see another bit of muscle kind of snuck in there. And that's kind of what I've got from that diagram. And so the difference that I'm really seeing is on one, I've got this muscle carrying all the way over in this kind of a shape. This one here, it opens it up and I've got a bunch of little muscles that are kind of connected here. But I know when I look at an actual figure that there's a real defined shape through here that I'm not seeing reflected easily in these muscles. And so we're going to continue. This third example is at, again, just a bit of a different angle. And I think this is maybe going to be the best of the bunch because it's actually a sculpt. It looks like a 3D model or an actual physical sculpture. I can't tell. So I'm going to draw my head first. My ear is going to attach just about here. My jaw is going to be about here. This will be my brow line, my eyes, my nose, my mouth. And let's get my eye sockets kind of roughed in here. I've got an eye here. My other one just about here. It's got a very hooked nose. Let's do it. Then my mouth. And this time the back of the head is actually obscured by the ear. But I really know where that muscle is attaching back here, and this muscle is attaching from these two examples, so I'm not too worried about that. I think that's going to work for us fine. I'm going to rough in my neck again. And just very quickly, I want to point out that while we're working on the anatomy for this, I very often see, and I'm going to draw just a small example here. Here's my head. I very often see necks extended from the back of the head, which you can see obviously looks very wrong from the side, but it's an easy mistake to make, and I do see people making it very often. So you really want to think, here's a ball for my head, my ear is going to be here. You want to think of your neck as coming out just about the back of the face here. So my eyebrow, my eye, my nose starts here. So my neck is going to be just about there. My ears here, that large muscle that connects to the front is coming out just behind the ear here. And then you come in from the back of the head, and it all kind of connects much more to the center of the back of the head, slightly forward. So you have a little bit more coming forward from the neck than you do coming back. And so in this example, again, just finish this out here. I can actually see my clavicle, my collarbone here. And so I'll just finish that shape in. I'm gonna go ahead and lighten this down just a bit and clean it up. So there's my basic head. I don't know if I captured the angle exactly perfectly, but it's gonna be good enough for me to get what I need out of this. So I've got my large muscle connecting to the front here. Here's the recess of my collarbone coming in the center. So I want to connect that directly to there. And it's coming out more straight than what I'm seeing here. And coming in and thinning out just about here is what I'm seeing. I've got my Adam's apple here, which I describe as being this kind of a shape. And I find that useful for me rather than the muscles in there. And there's underneath my jaw here. And so I've got this muscle, which I had kind of coming out just like this here and like this here. And you can see how different these are already. In this example, it's going to come out and fan just like this. And so it's a little more simple, or it's a little more similar to that shape, I feel like. But either way, they're similar enough, and I feel like I'm getting a feel for it. I have a muscle that comes out here. No idea what this muscle does, but it does something, and it connects there. And so now really the next most important part for me is going to be this muscle structure in the back. And in this example, it actually connects behind my ear, but that's all right because I'm much more interested in this area. And so in this example, it comes down and connects just about here and then comes out here. And I've actually got a two muscle structure kind of like this. And that to me, I'm liking already. And now I've got a muscle here. I've got another one here, which really correlates to what I was doing here, except that I've already drawn too much space in here. So let me go ahead and fix that. So I've got a muscle here. Let me give this just a little more space here. And I'm still a little bit small. I'm gonna just slide another shape in there. This is where all the muscle study in the world, I find I need something that works. And this is where things start to get screwy for me. But I feel like I've got something that's kind of making more sense than these two just because it's 3D. And so I've got a real plane in here, and that's what I really want to capture. I also have, I can see a little plane here, which I like. A little catch in here. And that is starting to kind of get me where I want to go. And so I have another two examples, and these are both from 3D models, which I'm really finding to be much more useful, and I highly recommend, versus looking at drawn muscle diagrams. I feel like 3D models really give you a sense of the actual dimensional planes of muscles. Especially, it can give you a sense of muscles that are very, very thin and not really important to the overall structure. You'll find that some muscles have a lot of mass and can really define the shape of a limb or a particular part of the body. And then some muscles, especially in some really complex areas like the back, can be very, very thin and almost paper-like. And trying to draw them accurately and learn them, I feel like it's actually kind of counterproductive. You really need to work with the muscles that are actually reflected in what a character looks like covered in skin. And so there's my basic drawing. I'm going to go ahead and lighten this one up and move on. And at this point now, I actually want to play a little bit more with the shadows because I'm using a 3D model. I think they can be, or a sculpt, I think they can be really useful for me to really understand the dimensions rather than just drawing shapes, which I have done just enough now that I'm starting to feel enough of a comfort level with that I don't need to continue to just keep doing that. So just under the chin, I've got just a little bit you can see right here, underside of the chin. I've got this muscle that, draw my clavicle first. Got my Adam's apple here, this muscle here, and I can actually see that secondary muscle that's kind of part of this overall frontal muscle coming out here. So I drew that in there. So I've got that muscle there. Goes from wider behind the ear to very thin, and then fans out this way here. I've got I've got my shoulder coming out this way, and it comes out and starts to thicken up through here. And then I've got this muscle here, and I've got a few muscles. There's a smaller one here, another one here, and some muscles that start to get a little less important to me. And I'm not killing myself to remember the exact placement of tiny little muscles like this. It's really not as important. But now that I have that, I actually really want to start establishing some shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and lighten this again just a bit, because really heavy line can kind of interfere with that. And so this muscle here comes in and connects really nicely to the muscle that kind of comes behind it. And I can see in my other example that I had, if you recall, I had this kind of a formation here, and so it's split, but I think that this diagram is actually a little bit more accurate. And so I cut here because I've got this muscle cutting across. I came a little bit low, so just like that. Draw under my Adam's apple here. Let's just shadow from the head here. And I've got a few other shapes to draw. I've got the shape that forms just inside here. These two muscles here are going to be visible that way. And I'm going to draw another bit of a connection just in here. Just like that. That one I'm starting to fake just a little bit, but I'm feeling pretty happy with that. Now that still looks like there's no skin. So it's not an ideal look, but it's getting me much closer to understanding exactly how all of these go together. And at that point, I'm going to go ahead and leave off my anatomical studies. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up here. In the next video, we're going to do some drawings from photographs and try to use what we've already learned. Be sure to tune in every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern for Monday Night Draw with Meredith and Dave. I will see you in the next video.